Okay. Okay. In English, I suppose. So my name is Agar. I'm a dietitian. And please introduce yourself. Roberto, please be first.
Roberto Della Rocca. I'm a veterinarian and an expert in food safety and in sustainability. I was till 1 week ago the quality and safety and sustainability manager of Shufersal. It's the largest chain of supermarkets in Israel. Now private consultant.
My name is Ornit Endeveld and I'm a nutritionist. I'm the head of the nutrition department of the health ministry in Israel since the last 5 months. And I also teach in the School of Public Health in Haifa University.
Dorit Adler, I'm also a nutritionist, post-director of the Hadassah Medical Center of the Nutrition Department, and now chief dietitian of the Israeli Council of Nutrition Security, and dealing with sustainability, NGOs, and things like this.
Maya Leventa Roberts. I'm a pediatrician by training. I trained in the States. I have a background in public health epidemiology. I worked at the New York City Department of Health, the Division of Epidemiology. Glad to see a number of our initiatives out there. And now I'm a director of translational policy at the Cloud Research Institute, which feeds back into the policies of Cloud Health Services.
Introduce yourself again.
Wait, no.
I'll start with the first question and then we'll take questions from the audience. So it divides into two. What protects the Israelis and in what aspects are we in jeopardy following United States nutrition? Who's going to start? Would you like to start? What protects us as a Ministry of Health?
I think what protects us mostly is what Lisa said before. We're used to having fruits and vegetables in our food dish or food everyday life. But unfortunately, we looked at every few years there's a national survey called Mabat in Israel. And we took all the Mabat surveys that were done like 7, 8, and 10 and 12 years ago, and we put them on the Israeli pyramid. And we saw that the first layer of the pyramid is the wheat and all the wheat products, but the second layer of the pyramid is sweets. And it's not vegetables, not fruits, and not all the other products that we want people to eat. So the custom of the Israelis become much more like the Americans now. It's not like so extreme as it is in America, because Israel is not an extreme country. We don't go big like low fat, so we do a little bit fat and a little bit sugar. Low carbs, so we do a little bit carb and a little bit fat. We don't do the extreme fashion of food. But we are influenced by the American system, and many children drink a lot of sweet drinks and eat a lot of junk food. And all the things that, all this bamba and things like that is very common among children. And now there's an Israeli program that the health ministry is trying to educate children called Efshari Bari, which is an initiative of the education ministry, the health ministry, and the sport ministry. And it encourages children and adults to do much more physical activity and to eat healthier food. And it started about 2 or 3 years ago, and now there's not enough money to continue it, but there's still in the sport ministry is another initiative to educate young children to do a lot of sport. And what is mostly things that were done, one of the success things that was done was the initiative in the kindergartens of happy and healthy celebration for birthday, thing like that. Because what we saw that in the kindergarten there was a lot of pressure from the parents and also from the teachers in the kindergarten to bring a lot of candies to the birthdays. And there's a lot of activity done through the Facebook. A lot of ideas how to make healthier birthdays and how to, it's okay to eat just a cake and then to have fruits and vegetables, to do other activities other than sweets. So there are now initiatives. Another initiative now that is done was there's a new law for food in schools. It is going to start on the beginning of September 2015. And there is an initiative of food in schools. But most people who get food in schools are very low socioeconomic status people. And what we saw that the food that is served in schools is not healthy food. And now we're working very hard, and Chava is sitting here. Chava works in our department, and she's writing all the recommendations to schools now, and they're going to add it to the law. So at least the law will be very healthy. I hope the implementation will be also healthy.
We'll join.
Because just on the way from Jerusalem to here, we had a very tough conversation with the dietitian of the program that gives food to schools, because we were very annoyed by how it was written. Because we thought there's a lot of things that has to be changed. So it's not easy, because when you do huge amount of food, you bring school huge amount of food, it's not easy to do it locally and to do it as we would like it to be. And also to do like vegetarian foods. What's amazing is that many people don't know how to make vegetarian tasty. Vegetarian dish tasty for children. And it's much easier to bring like, there's junk foods and all the other things, like all prepared schnitzels and things like that, because children likes it, and it's easy to make. And when you do mass amount of food, it's much easier to do it like it. And if you want to do like, bowls from lentils and things like that, you need to invest much more imagination and other facilities. It's not easy, but we are bringing a lot of press on it, and I hope partially it will be okay.
I can add to the topic. I think Israel is following the United States in the major aspects. From bad aspects, also in democracy, which is good, but
no,
not only. But when we're talking about food, we have higher rates of overweight and obesity, which is climbing on one side. On the other side, we have huge rates of nutrition insecurity in Israel today. And this is a huge problem also in the United States, because 1/3 of the population is obese or overweight in the United States, and 1/7 or 1/8 of the population gets food stamps. So this is a very disturbing problem, because today we know that nutrition insecurity, it's not only a social disease, it's a מחלה רב-דורית. It's a multi-generational
illness.
As we have seen that there is all the topic of epigenetics and the fact that the nutrition situation of the mother while pregnant determines the risks of their embryo to be sick in most of these diseases in the future. When you look at Israel still have some strength, like, as you said, family meals, but the fact that 1.8 million people are in nutrition insecurity, and they cannot support the family with a basic healthy food basket, it is something that the government has, a new government, with your help, will need to take care. Another feature of the American culture is all the mega stores that we buy food in. And if you look at most of the cities in Israel, like Beersheba, for example, there is a huge mall in every entrance to Beersheba today, yes? And the fact that there are so many food stores means that we are going to buy and eat it. And that means that it will have two results. We're going to get sicker, more obese, and on the other side, it's a sustainable problem, which is also growing, yes?
It's so boring in Beersheba, you can only eat.
Yeah, we
So
left
what
the
you're
war.
saying, in order to solve the nutrition problems, we
You
have
had-
to be
you had-
interesting.
Take Tel Aviv and bring to Beersheba.
Okay, so now it's your turn to say.
Theater, it's not food.
Let's give us some examples from
the
Italy.
Bedouin population.
Yes, no, there is
No.
many big problems in
Be a
Israel.
big change for them.
And another big problem is the food politics in Israel as well, yes? We know that the prices of food, especially of the basic food basket that was very cheap in Israel 10 years ago, today is higher than most countries. And it is a real political problem that all of us will have to help and change it.
I'm quite agree with her because I'm not so optimistic. Let's say that I'm more pessimistic than optimistic. Maybe this is the reason because I'm running to the Knesset, so you have to be pessimistic. But
You have to be optimistic if you want to admit
no, I want to change what is happening. But, as she said, we have a higher and higher level of poverty in Israel. And that's a huge problem. Because we have special populations. You have the ultra-Orthodox, and we have the Arabs, and they have big families with a lot of children. So there is a problem of food. That's first. The second one is the economy, as she said, because it's a closed economy. And you have 6 huge food groups that are 70% of the market. So they decide more or less what we eat and at what price. So there are problems that you don't have in the US. So that's the reason why I'm a little bit pessimistic now. I don't see a positive direction. I only see that we are going
Backwards.
backwards.
I want to jump in. There's, as a pediatrician, there's an untapped resource, I think, and certainly in the U.S., but here it's a possibility that I think we're not using, which is there's a very close family structure here in Israel that we don't find in the States. And there's an involvement of the grandparents that it theoretically could be a huge benefit when we talk about the way things used to be pam, sha'ayinu ochlim, and unfortunately, we often see that grandparents who were used to getting a treat once a week themselves now bring a treat every day when they pick up the kids after school. And the people in the family that really could be incredibly strong role models, and it's something that we don't have as an opportunity in America, is turning out to be a real negative here in terms of not providing that kind. They provide role models in many other ways, but in terms of nutrition role models, I often find that young parents are really just taking the cues from whatever the moms are saying. What are the first foods you give to the kid? You make the marak, and this and that. And I think that's a direction that we can re-steer families back toward, is to turning to what grandparents inherently knew and experienced, and helping them understand that treat should be a treat and not the daily occurrence.
Not a snack. A
Yes.
treat should be a treat, and a snack should be a snack.
Questions from the audience?
I would like to know what's the budget of Michelle Obama's campaign.
I don't know the budget. I wish I could find it out for you. But there's been some problems with it, and a lot of people were very disappointed with the direction it went. However, it started because when the Farm Bill was passed, the subsidies for fruits and vegetables weren't what they should be, or for organic foods. A lot of the things we thought would happen. They made pizza. The tomato sauce on pizza was considered a vegetable. That was very disappointing. Some people feel she caved in, but to not be pessimistic, she started the conversation. There's no doubt.
She made a huge
There are so many
difference.
changes, and I'll tell you what it is analogous to. I think it's analogous to smoking. And that nutrition and obesity is analogous to what smoking was 30 years ago. And we're going to, 30 years from now, we will not believe what crap we used to eat. And I do think it's becoming a public health issue. And you've got to do this slowly. So she did make changes. There is a garden in the White House that the kids eat, and all the people who eat in the White House only eat in the White House garden. Urban farming, WIC, which is a program for people who have a certain poverty level for mothers and up to 5 years old. There are more generous installments of food for them. So there's a lot of positive things that she has done, but it did start the conversation.
Yes.
And from Michelle Obama, we got the My Plate. One of the chefs in the White House helped to define it. She put it on the agenda. She made that the issue.
But there's a lot of federal money invested in this program. I was in New York and they told me that they have huge.
Not as much as M&M's and Hershey's and Coca-Cola.
I guess, yes,
And
but
that's-
still, look, in Israel we have this nice program and it's dried out now.
But it's a matter of the health minister.
Right.
Because if there's a health minister that is concerned about obesity and concerned about
Right,
nutrition,
exactly.
then he put some money on that.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, our last health minister was not concerned about this problem.
Didn't have it.
So skinny.
Who was
Maybe because of that, I don't know. But she was more concerned about suiciding and things like that, which is also important. But if you think how many people suicide a year and how many people die from heart attack and cancer and obesity, it's huger and huger than that. And I can share with you my experience with the Kenneth Sderot that I was invited to. And there was a discussion about how to, which kind of food should be subsidized. And I came with a list that we built with the wheat, and we decided that the most healthy food that has to be subsidized.
What
and
was in it,
and I was
for
sure
example?
people will hug me and say, "Oh, good you came, we're just waiting for you." And there were the people from the economy ministry, and there were the people from the Kalkala, Ministry of Kalkala, and from the agriculture, and we were just wrestling
There is
because
the
they
politics
wanted.
in Israel. There is the politics because we saw the
Sure.
reform of
Sure.
Misrad Otzar. He lowered the prices of
Shamelech
cream and
Sure, and he said,
butter.
I'm so proud that we lowered the amount, the
Prices.
money of the Shamelech Metuka. So I said, why are you proud? People will get heart attack. What
Yeah.
are you so proud of?
Amazing.
It will cost you much more money than if you subsidize vegetables and fruits and
Of course.
whole wheat bread.
They are
So-
speaking about lowering the VAT about vegetables and fruits, and are not doing this.
No, there's
No,
no
there is
VAT
no
on
VAT.
vegetable
No
food.
VAT.
They want to add.
About, no, but
They want to put the
put,
VAT
yeah,
on
yeah,
vegetables and
yes,
fruits
exactly.
instead of
Yes.
or keeping the situation as today.
Yes, but
That's the
what
problem.
we wanted is that will be a basket of fruit and vegetables that will cost 2 shekels a kilo. And you can buy in 2 shekels a kilo fruits and vegetables as much as you like. And not that it will cost 10 or 12 shekels a kilo. Because although it is without VAT, it is very expensive because they let the market decide on the prices. And there's also the thing of the putting taxes over sweet drinks. Because there was, we tried to do it, and there was a big issue about it. Because there's a things called loss leader. When you know what it is. What happened in Mexico, for example, they put taxes over soda drinks, sweet soda drinks. And what happened? The supermarket lowered the prices of the sweet drinks and raised the prices of shampoo and cosmetic things in order that people will continue to drink the sweet drinks. So it's very difficult, even though if you put taxes over foods, it doesn't for sure change the eating pattern and the buying pattern because the supermarket is very powerful and they can change the prices even though there's also tax over it. So it's a really interdisciplinary decision. It's not just the government that can say what to do. The industry has to be part of it. The supermarket has to be part of it. It's very complex. And the most important thing is that people has to demand it. Because if people demand it, then the government will have to do it. And the supermarket also will act together with the people.
But you know, in cigarettes it didn't happen. They didn't lower the prices and raise
They
it on.
did.
They
They
did.
did also,
So
yes.
eventually it's a matter of time. If you're
it's
consistent
also-
with these taxes,
Right.
it will work.
And it's also a
Yes,
matter
of
of social norms.
Yes.
Because social norms with the cigarettes, that was part of the lowering
Yes,
amount of
yes,
cigarettes.
that's true.
You mentioned earlier that you can eat healthy food on a budget. How can you?
Well,
In the US and comparing to Israel?
well, I don't find fruits and vegetables here very expensive. you know.
Not yet.
Israel?
Comparing the states.
Exactly.
Depends when.
Okay,
If you buy more, there are normal,
Comparing to
I
the
don't
US,
know.
it's
Why
expensive
don't you-
compared
but
to what
if
we
you-
had
if you-
5 years
normal
Yeah,
one, not biological.
Sure.
Organic, normal
No,
one.
the fruits are
more or
very
less as in
sensitive.
Europe.
Not compared to
Okay.
the US.
So
That's
that's-
Comparing to what the family needs.
Oh, but if they say it's expensive, then
Yeah, can, if you do it, I don't know. So, I mean, you know, I think things like beans are a really healthy choice. And all the plant foods, and to have, it's not that you shouldn't have fish, dog, or oaf or anything, you have to have less. In other words, we don't have to have that huge piece, that just a small piece, or to have, you know, like eggs, and to have, you know, milk, you know, and fruits and vegetables. It's still not as expensive as the most unhealthy foods here. Fast food here is still very expensive. It is. McDonald's is still
That's good.
Yes.
The whole
45 shekels.
you have that, and all of this.
falafel is not.
Falafel is not. Although
5
I found good
shekels.
falafel in
Falafel 5 shekels.
Falafel is not so bad. If you ask for b'chol falafel v'malei yarakot.
Listen, nutritionist is always a nutritionist.
I got my
ופיתה מקמח מלא.
steak to kaborim. I think
Yes,
falafel could
about
be
that.
so healthy. I agree. That's another thing. The fast food of Israel
fried.
is so healthy if you want it to be. You don't need to put all the.
Shawarma?
No.
With
Fast food.
No, but there's so many vegetables wherever you go here. There's vegetables. When you go to a restaurant, you get big salads. As soon as the vegetables are, unlike Italy, and it's there. But by Italy, you have to look for them. You have to order them. They're on the side. It's never the
Yeah.
meal. Italy, you know, here vegetables makes up such. You know, it doesn't have to be a salad, but so many things are still vegetables. And to me, it's a wonderful thing that it is still such an important part of the meal.
Yes.
I know what the Italian diet why is so good. Because the Italian after the food make a lot of sex.
They're sleeping.
It was expected of you.
That's athletic.
We're getting all the dirt now. That's the real Mediterranean diet. That's how they burn all those calories.
There is something though to the dinner of a chavita and salad for dinner for kids is totally unheard of in the States. I mean it's hysterical to think that you would eat an omelet for dinner. But for here there is some sense of you have a small, modest dinner, and even though you're maybe having some, you know, lechem shachol vegan or mashu kazeh, you're still having this chavita and salad for dinner like every single night. We do need to grasp onto these very good things that we are doing and at least give us some sense of pat on the back.
Yes, please.
Excuse me. You're pro-taxation on high-calorie food. And I know maybe our next minister, Trachtenberg, is also in favor of this policy. He is. But there is no evidence whatsoever, no theoretical, no study case anywhere in the world that it helped to reduce obesity rates or benefit social welfare. On the contrary, Denmark is the only place that did it, and it had horrible side effects. So your intervention in the free market, that the evidence are against it. How you support it? How you justify it?
First thing, in general, I agree with you that we don't have enough proof for that it helps. But we
Non-proof.
Wait, but we do have proof from cigarettes. Right. When you raise the amount of money that cigarette cost, it lowers the amount of people who use it. And wait a moment. In Denmark, it was a complex situation because Denmark is very close to other countries in Europe, and it was easy to go to the other country and to buy butter over there. In Israel, it's not the place. You don't go to Lebanon.
Syria.
Guns you can buy.
I'm not laughing. I'm really serious. And I think we don't have enough time to judge it. Because the only taxation that was done was in a few countries. And it takes a while until it starts influencing. And another thing, you don't do tax on food unless you lower the prices of healthy foods. You first lower the prices of healthy foods, and then you raise the prices of unhealthy foods.
Right.
Because you have to have alternatives.
Right.
You don't want to injure the poor people that don't have money to buy food, and then it will be too expensive for them to buy. But if you subsidize the fruit and vegetables, and you subsidize the lentils and the whole wheat bread, and people can go to the supermarket and with 100 shekel can buy food for all the 5 children family, then you can raise the prices of the sweet drinks and the unhealthy foods, and then people will change their eating patterns, that's for sure.
And there is more to it. You know, when you're talking about environmental zihum,
Contamination.
contamination,
Pollution.
today
Pollution.
today you know that the industry, if it pollutes, it has to pay the cost of what it needs to repair it. These foods that we're talking about, they cost a lot of money to all of us, because we all have to pay the treatment, the treatment of the diseases, yes? That means the true cost, when talking about sustainability, a cost of a product should carry inside all the external costs. This is why, this is another point. And the third point is, there's no free market. Not in the United States. The fact that the United States subsidizes the corn, this is not free market, not at all. This is a captured market by all the monopoles. And in Israel, it's the same. You have taxes on imported food, and when you lower the tax, this is intervention. There is illusion that we live in a free market of food, but it's not. This is not the reality.
I can respond. It was a longer response by you, so I'll try to answer
I make
everything
it
you
short,
said.
by the way.
First of all, cigarettes are not food.
I know
Cigarettes are indulgence. Or you smoke,
Yes.
or you don't smoke. Food, everybody consumes.
Is cola indulgence?
Hmm?
Cola.
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola.
Food,
Is it
food,
food?
Not food.
food
Does
versus
Coca-Cola.
food
It's
versus
indulgence.
cigarettes. This is not the same category
Why?
of product,
Why not?
because cigarettes
Inside.
are addictive. Or you don't, or you smoke.
Coca-Cola is very addictive.
Or you smoke, or
can
you
drink
don't
water,
smoke.
Sugar is addictive as cocaine. Come on.
Food, everybody
More of,
consumes
marijuana.
3 times a day. It's a matter of
No, you
choice,
cannot compare cigarettes to Coke. You can compare cigarettes to water.
But
Water
you
you cannot.
but you
כל זה לא,
compare
זה
the
לגמרי...
taxation on cigarettes to the taxation on fat food,
And
etc.
both, it's the same.
Furthermore, you were saying that this is not a free market. I agree, but we cannot guarantee that more intervention would offset an unwanted product intervention that we already did. So, if we don't have enough research, that I just reminded that you said that in Denmark they can go
Germany.
to Germany and to buy their butter there, or they knew the effectiveness of the law and to stockpile. That's why we saw a decline in this kind of products, and that the policy was made not smart. That it wasn't. They did not subsidize other foods.
Is there a question in the end?
No, he's responding.
What's
the comment?
Because I don't agree with some of the responses.
Not
that,
that is wonderful, but
No.
it can be 2 ways.
So and it's not that I don't agree. There is no scientific evidence that they are correct, and there are more scientific evidence that my point is closer to the truth.
There's no
No
scientific
scientific
evidence at all.
No.
Why do you have evidence? Where's your evidence?
Research on the Denmark study.
But in Denmark they stopped it because there was loss of job places. But it's a different topic,
Exactly.
because we should change the whole food chain.
Right.
We should turn the food chain to be a sustainable one. This is the
That
point.
is a good point, and I'm sorry for. I'd like to take that to the sustainability point of view, please. Please share your opinion about sustainable nutrition.
We are for.
A little point.
What is
About,
sustainable nutrition?
produce.
That's a good question. What is sustainable nutrition?
בואו
Yeah.
נדבר על זה באמת.
יאללה, בואי.
אני מרצה על זה.
קדימה.
I think that we have two unique problems in Israel about food, especially produce. First of all, there is food security. It's not what you think. We have to be with enough food in case of war all the time. They are speaking about produce, they're speaking about milk products. You have to make this also if it's not cheaper, it is not cheap, it costs a lot of money. That's one problem that we have. So is a barrier for import from not from the countries around us, but from Europe and so on. And the second problem is a little tiny country and produce. We have a lot of problem with organic food because it's not really 100% organic. Because if this field is near a normal field, and I can say all the time, spoke about produce, vegetable and fruits. Here in Israel, the situation is not so good. I made a program for checking our produce, and at the really beginning, 2008, I found a lot of problems. Now it's better, but it's still not the same as in Europe or in the United States about pesticides, about microorganisms. We have a huge problem with this. So if you say, okay, you have to eat vegetables and fruits because it's good, yes, has to be good, but in Israel it's not so good till now. Also the biologic food or organic food, as I said here in Israel, because it's not 100% organic, because the size of the country. There are two problems that are Israeli problems.
You want to define what is a sustainable diet?
I will define it, but I must say something to the gentleman who said that there's no proof about raising the price. If there was no proof, the beverage industry spent millions of dollars to fight the tax of soda and the size. Not the tax, just that you had to limit it to 16 ounces. You could have 12 16 ounces. My question to you is, why would the soda industry fight and spend millions, $500 million, all over New York to fight this if they thought it wouldn't have an effect?
Although the flip side is the 16 ounce was not based on scientific data by any stretch of the imagination. And actually there's very little data. We're basing so much of what we do on really, I mean, there's no demonstrated intervention that fights obesity. Even surgery long term is raising doubt. So I don't want to put us on this pedestal that like we have the answer and we just need to get enough people to implement. We don't really know. I mean, we have good guesses and we can use our common sense, but we're not basing this off of irrefutable evidence in the same way that we theoretically could do with smoking other things. But that's okay. We still get a sense of like, it's common sense and it should work. And we need to have some of that flexibility of saying, we'll try something out on a small scale, we'll see how things can work, and we'll be flexible enough to change stride if we need to.
I agree and am concerned also from what you're saying. Because you know, if we are going to look for every evidence-based, I remember Dr. Nomi Torster, we had a huge argument a few years ago about a glass of Coke a day. Today you have evidence about it's no, you don't. There are research to show that women that drink one portion of Coke a day raises the risk of diabetes.
But we also know that if you switch to Diet Coke, it doesn't address it, and we know that
to Diet Coke,
it does not. It does
today
not
there is research about Diet Coke and
we know the intolerance.
But I would like to say that. To put it into the architecture, you know, there is today big problems in Israel with houses that shouldn't be this tall. And there is a sustainable architecture who said, you know, when you walk and you see something which is it's totally wrong. You can see it's totally wrong, yes? And sometimes it smells totally wrong.
Right.
It's wrong. So if there is also the whole total data that we have on nutrition from 10,000 years ago to today, and if we are going to raise another generation until we will have the proofs, you will never get it. Because just to continue this idea and to finish it, the food industry changes the food all the time.
Right.
You will never get opportunity to have evidence based about the food.
But that's my point. We do not have evidence.
No, we have.
But that's
it.
okay.
No, but we do have. We have huge data today. Huge data today about the food dfusim, the food patterns that are protective, and it goes like Chut HaShani. It comes through every research, again and again, and it doesn't matter if it's the DCCT, UKPDS, the Finnish, it's
You look at the Harvard nurses study and you find that
but the nurses,
the high fiber diets are not necessarily shown to reduce cancer.
But the nurses
so many
is
other
not
factors.
a clinical.
Exactly. But if you look at second generation, if you look at immigrants that come to America, the Asian, they don't have any risk of heart disease. They have diabetes. They come to America.
Yes,
The first generation, they develop all these chronic diseases. And we wouldn't use penicillin if we had waited for evidence-based medicine. There would be a lot of things that wouldn't exist today if we're going to wait for evidence-based medicine, because there's so much ways different scientists interpret things, and I've gone to a million meetings with top scientists and they disagree about saturated fat and all that. We know one thing, and very few people disagree, that a plant-based diet is the healthiest diet for most people and for the planet. And I think that most people wouldn't dispute that. So with all this paleo and all this other stuff, there's no doubt. I don't think no scientist would disagree, and I don't think we should sit here and argue about this wasn't evidence for that. There's no evidence, and I've worked with many people, very poor people. I've worked with them. I don't have the evidence, the research and statistics, that they told me, why did they eat McDonald's? Why? Because they can't afford broccoli. They wish they could. They told me they wish they could have that, and they said they don't have the money for it. It's so expensive. So what do? They buy what they can, the cheapest food by default. The default, מה זה בעברית default? That must be healthy food. It is the opposite. The default is to buy cheap and eat unhealthy food. And I disagree. Taxes work. And the taxes aren't just taxes stam. It was going to provide nutrition, education, just like the taxes on cigarettes. Cigarettes cost $10, and the money that the cigarette company had to make because they were sued, and food companies will be sued too, and I hope doctors will be sued too, if they only give more medicine and more medicine instead of helping people by changing their lifestyles, is to help them come with programs for the anti-smoking campaign. So it's not just to tax, it's to take that extra revenue and do some good in terms of health promotion.
First of all, you cannot
that's it. Must be. Taxes.
You cannot guarantee that the tax on
Who
food
can
will go to do.
I tell you what is guaranteed. Everybody is getting fatter by the day. This you can dispute. We know what's working.
By hysteria, you
The
can
way it is
solve.
now works. Everybody gets fatter. So now you gotta try something else.
That's right.
But are you
not trying
suggesting to continue the way it is now?
But that
I'm
is
asking you,
hysteric.
do you suggest to keep the status quo?
No, I have different methods.
Which is?
Mandatory disclosure.
Of what?
Calories.
Asma, who understands it? What do most people understand?
It's not affecting the people. It's affecting the industry.
It doesn't.
That's not. They have it on the label.
No,
Don't
it does.
understand.
It
They
does.
do reformulate
Because
their
in
recipes.
the
Next
nutrition
year,
Most
education
people
label,
don't know what a calorie means. They have no idea. They have no idea how much you have to burn to.
after the Nutrition Education Labeling Act,
אתה מוכן להציג את עצמך? בבקשה.
אושרי מיידניק.
תואר?
תואר, I'm a student at Faculty of Agri-Economics Department.
זה משרד האוצר, חבר'ה.
מהרי האוצר,
ממש לא. ממש לא.
בסדר, זה טוב שהיו שומעים את הקול הזה.
לא, זה מצוין שבאת, קודם כל מצוין שבאת. הנושאים הם מאוד מורכבים. It's very complicated, and it's hard in one workshop to summarize everything.
Please come again
תשמע,
for
תוך
for
שנה,
meetings.
שנתיים,
We'd like you to come.
נשכנע אותך.
לא נצליח. בארץ אף אחד לא מצליח לשכנע אף אחד.
לא נכון.
תוך שנה, שנתיים, הולך להיות על כל התוויות של המוצרים, FOP, Front of a Product, כל הדברים שאתה צריך לדעת. כמה קלוריות יש, כמה נטרן יש, כמה שומנים.
יש כבר מאחורה.
יש מאחורה, אבל יהיה קדימה בגדול. אני לא חושב שזה יעזור.
קודם כל,
כן, מה זה עוזר? אנשים באים ואומרים, בסדר, עדיין, לא יודעים מה זה אומר שיש לך...
Because you said when you saw the 1,200 calories on the sandwich, you
but I
didn't
think that
buy.
most people are not like this.
Well-
I'm talking about a population.
Well, then the point is teach the people to know to read label and know what 250 calories means in a daily frame.
I can tell you one thing. The more we put on the label, the fatter we become.
Exactly. And I want to say something.
Stop buying
less attention to them.
We support education, but speaking about evidence, education alone doesn't make
No, I agree. I'm just saying that we need to
food labeling
put things
is
in
very-
perspective.
Food labeling is important, and also food labeling that is שיפוטיים, נכון? זה judgmental food labeling is very important because then you can find the right food from the other, the less worse food to buy, but it's not enough. And as we see in health promotion programs, if we want people to stop smoking, if we want people to start having physical activity, education is not enough. You have to have the right built environment. You have to have growing vegetables in the kindergarten and in the schools.
I agree.
And in eating vegetables and vegetarian foods part of the week.
Cooking.
And
right,
and know how to make home cooking, because what we saw, we were working with איך קוראים לו? נו, זה שמחלק את האוכל, נו, בלעדים, נו. And what they saw, that they give subsidized food to people, and they give envelope and boxes of things, of lentils and things like that. And people were saying, well, we don't know what to do with it. Take it. They didn't know how to cook it.
That's
Which
the
is
main
basic
problem.
thing.
That's the main problem.
Right.
More people don't know how to make healthy, nutritious food.
Right.
Like in the Orthodox, we see that they eat an enormous amount of naknikiyot, of hot dogs, which is the worst, but it's the cheapest. And they don't eat majada, they don't make any rice and lentils. That's a problem because they don't know. People think that you can get protein only from meat.
Products. Yes. Because you have to teach nutrition from the first year of elementary school, and you have to teach cooking from the first year of elementary school.
teach Torah.
And it should be the same subject. It should be a sustainable nutrition course.
לא, אני מסכים איתך, אי אפשר להכניס את זה.
סופגניות בחנוכה.
I have to say, you're talking about labeling the food, and I hardly see people in supermarkets standing with two different yogurts comparing the labels. You will hardly see that. They
Only comparing the prices.
Some comparing prices.
Not the labels.
But it's not that some
They don't check best before or use by. They don't check the first thing that they have to check.
But you know that on cigarette, I think in Australia, they now cannot put anything aside from the warnings. You cannot put anything. If we will have this system in Israel on foods,
right.
You can put only the food label.
Right.
Nothing else.
About omega-3
This
or
would
nothing.
do
That's it.
Israel, it's not allowed.
Actually, in Israel, they do.
You can't put health claims on food.
You cannot allow
No, but you can put milk has omega-3. You could put that in.
No, it contains omega-3.
But milk doesn't.
No.
So they shouldn't be doing it.
Although one thing they do in Israel that they don't do in the States, which I love, is they do per 100 grams. So if you look on the back, they'll say what's in a serving, they'll say, but they almost always there's per 100 grams. And so you know that, tchina has 563 calories per 100 grams. No one eats 100, hopefully. No one eats 100 grams. But that doesn't exist in the States because exactly what you described, you give a serving of a רווקוס, שזה בעצם, and that should continue having some sort of standardization that you can look at the difference between, the milky and the gina levana and some non-dairy yogurt.
But it's changing in the States, and I don't agree with you, because most people have no idea what 100 grams is, and what they're changing in the label is realistic portion sizes, and that's the best thing. When I go to Italy, I go nuts with 100 grams, how much do you eat? Is it 100 grams of pasta dry, 100 grams if you cook it? It's much better when it's based on realistic portion sizes, and the new label will have huge calories, and what a portion is based on reality. It's not based on some unrealistic, like a little box of cereal, there's 6 portions. And they're changing this.
Nobody reads it.
What?
I wouldn't say
nobody. I agree with you.
10% of the population maybe reads the label.
But they're changing the label to encourage, and hopefully some more people may read it. I agree with you. I think that there are people who will always read the label, there are people that won't. But it's so confusing now, the label, that no one knows how to use it.
You know what is helping? If you use traffic light
right.
system.
No, it doesn't.
No, you know why that is working? Because after 2 months that Tesco did it, all the producers asked to
That's why it doesn't work. In England, they used the Ramzor, and all the products they had the bread, the sales went down. They stopped using it. It didn't work. That's why no food company wants the red traffic light.
Let's try to stay together.
The comment and question then?
Yes, this labeling with the traffic lights, it's the only way that it will be common, easy to use, and easy to use because people don't understand what does it mean if the natron is higher or lower. If they don't understand, as she said, calorie, if it's high or not.
But you
cannot. What I'm saying that if the labeling was like in electronic products, that you have
judgmental labeling, that's what you mean.
Green or red?
No, you have A, B, C, D, red, orange, and
then you can make it from A to Z.
No, just red, yellow, green.
One judgmental. It works judgmental. If you take, for example, 10 boxes of bread, and you put the judgmental one on the bread like Efshari Bari today. You put only on bread that is whole wheat, low sodium, low sugar, and no trans fatty acid. Then you say, okay, I want you to buy the healthiest bread that is in the market, and you go and find the Efshari Bari.
But you give one product to choose.
No, you can give 10.
All the ones that are above the criteria. Meets the criteria.
You know what becomes the problem? Setting the criteria.
Yes. Right.
Exactly. And this is what I told you I work for Nickelodeon. This is the biggest problem I have. There are certain standing guidelines for advertising kids' foods to kids. So Nickelodeon advertises and puts their characters on food products, like SpongeBob on the front of your food is like prime real estate. And the thing I wrestle with is they came up with all these guidelines of what are the acceptable amounts. This becomes a huge issue, and I've sat in industry, and this becomes a consensus has to agree, and it becomes a huge problem. What are the criteria we're going to look for?
But there's the WHO criteria now.
You look at the WHO criteria, but it becomes a problem with criteria. I mean, I'll give you an example. It meets the criteria for fat, it meets the criteria for sugars, but it has artificial sweeteners, and it has some food colors.
So you don't give it?
I don't give it, but that's not listed in the criteria. The criteria are only related to nutrients that are unhealthy. So when I get this food and it has stevia, I don't think kids should be using artificial sweeteners. I wrestle with that because then it gets approved, yet it has stevia, it has, all these other additives, but additives aren't in the criteria. Who's to say that additives aren't as bad as saturated fat? I don't know. And with all the new research with microbes in the gut, additives are really unhealthy.
Yes,
It becomes a huge problem of what goes on. And that's why we have to focus more on getting people to buy less processed foods, to learn how to cook, to use the supermarket, the perimeter. That is the supermarket, we call it the cage, and that's where all the processed foods are that have the labels. Spend as little time there as possible. We should be spending most of our time in the shop here and in the perimeter of the supermarket where the food is kept refrigerated because it's alive, where you look at your cart and you have as few foods as possible that have labels on it. That's the answer, is not, and to have a cart full of fresh fruits and vegetables and grains and beans, and to have, we have to be realistic, foods with labels, but minimize that amount. And we've got to go back to the basics. Learn how to cook simply, how to use herbs, how to use spices, and to me, these are the issues we got to, and not to rely on the food industry. The food industry will do everything to confuse us and to get us to use their foods. They don't want us to cook as much. They want us to use food products.
And that is also the sustainable way.
Of course it's the sustainable way. Live like you did, the people lived here in the, that's what sustainability, like the Mediterranean diet, when you think of the health value of the Mediterranean diet, when you go back to the original studies in the 1950s with Ansel Keys and all these studies, what was it? People were starving, they were hungry, it was a peasant diet. They were sitting down, they were eating cheap food because who ate animal products? We got to go back to the time of Israel, the time that was, you said it in a way, of what was. No, just in terms of the food.
Not that far back.
Not of eating more simply diets, eating foods lower on the food chain. That's what's best for our bodies, and that's what's best for the planet and for
I want to ask, what do you think is the role of companies? Do you see changes over there as well?
Absolutely. There's no doubt, and this is what I see from companies. The companies answer to their stockholders. So if a company is on the stockholders, they have a portfolio. People are so aware of obesity now that stockholders want their company to do something. And companies are going to respond because they're all about profit. And if you haven't read an amazing book, you saw him briefly in my video, by Michael Morse called Fat, Salt, and Sugar. It is amazing what food companies do to get us addicted to food. Yes. And one of the worst foods was this Lunchables, which is these crackers and cheese. It was created, and millions of dollars was spent by Kraft to create for kids this autonomy so that they could prepare their lunch in school and had crackers and cheese and bologna, the worst crap. And the president feels so guilty now because of what he did. He now is left Kraft Food, and he now is marketing baby carrots. Because he realized, it's an amazing story, he realized that the food companies are promoting obesity by doing this. And a lot of food companies now are responding. It's like the cigarettes, and I'll tell you what's changing with the new healthcare laws in America. You know about Obamacare, and there's a lot of problems, but one of the things that you no longer could do is you could no longer cherry pick which you decide, health insurance companies, who they're going to insure. That's the way health insurance used to work. What happened is health insurance was linked to your job. So when you no longer worked somewhere, you didn't have health insurance until you got another job, and they may not offer health insurance. So this is something that's wonderful in Israel that you didn't mention, but it's wonderful the way, I know there's problems, but it is something wonderful. Now, with Obamacare, one of the most wonderful things is that a health insurance company can no longer decide whether or not they're going to insure you because of a previous illness. Once you are apply for health insurance, they must take you no matter what. I think we're going to see a change in agriculture policies and subsidies. Because food, now it's going to affect all these health insurers. Because now they cannot no longer decide. They're not going to insure somebody with a chronic disease. Somebody who had heart disease, they may say, we're not going to insure you. You probably have 5 years to live. We're not going to insure you. Can't do that any longer. And I think because of that, and I've seen it, I teach at the medical school, I teach at the dental school, and I can't tell you the changes that are happening in medicine now. It is more proactive to prevent disease because it's just too expensive to go on living the way we can. It's not sustainable. And food companies are going to answer to the stockholders, and because they're going to realize, just like Coke did with all those choices.
Suits are on the way?
Suits?
Suits.
מה זה סוס?
תביעות.
lawsuits. I just showed you one with pomegranate.
Yeah.
Absolutely, there will.
No, but
I think.
Like smoking, people are.
I think it will happen. I do, and I'm not just saying this now. I do believe that this is something that's going to happen because it's so clear, and we're seeing these kids at 8, at 12, with diabetes that can't breathe. It's just something. It can't go on. And, you know, we all need to take responsibility. And there's so many movies out there now and documentaries that the lay public is watching. It's no longer only in the ivory tower and academics. It's changed. I see it all over the city. People are starting to care and make the connection. And food companies are responding by changing what they offer. There's a long way to go. I'm trying to be as optimistic as I can, but I do think there will be change.
It's kind of the same whatever is happening with insurance companies right now that are talking about climate change because of all the recent storms and everything, and they start to realize that probably, you know, everything is going to go up in terms of insurance because of that. So suddenly they're all pro.
Right. But sadly, what they do, though, is they export all those products to the third world, just like smoking.
Exactly.
This is the saddest thing. So Coca-Cola is losing shares in the States, but it's picking up in Pakistan, all these other third world places. That's where, when I went to Senegal, Israel. I saw all the signs for cigarettes, smoking, all the things that are... And that's what's sad. And it happened with Nestle with the formula and breastfeeding in the 70s, where they exported all the formula to Africa. To the you know, so that is the other half, so that they know that the American market, the Western world, is more aware. There's a new market now with money, and Russia, all these other countries.
But if there is a little light at the end of a tunnel, is that I want to be in the Knesset, not staying outside. That from the 90s, the huge and big companies start to deal with the CSR. Corporate social responsibility, about what you say. And also in Israel arrived the CSR. So that's maybe something positive. At the end, had I tried to teach in Shufersal, a dead customer is a customer that is not buying nothing. So we are interested in the customers that live a lot of years.
Yes.
Thank you very much for everybody. This will be the end of it. It's late and we're done.